All right.
Great, thank you. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to a regular meeting of the Silverton Board of Trustees. The time 7:05 p.m. and I call this meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Trustee Edwards.
Here.
Trustee Franker. Here. Trustee Harper.
Here.
Trustee Bierma.
Here.
Trustee George is absent. Mayor Pro Tem Barney.
Here.
Mayor Herman.
Here. Very much. Do we have any revisions to this evening's agenda?
Staff does not.
Okay, great. And I assume no trustee revisions. All right, we'll begin with public comment. We'll start with in-person public comment and then move to the Zoom public comment. Please announce yourself and we'll give you a 3-minute time. Would anyone here like to make public comment? Great.
Dear Town Trustees, my name is Nico Foster, and I am the owner-operator of Nico Foster Construction and Design. I'm here to speak to you about the effects of the moratorium on building on properties deemed wetlands on my business and specifically house delayed construction of the Goranson House at lots 13 and 14, block 76, otherwise known as where 5th Street intersects Green Street. This property is zoned BP. First, I'd like to tell you about some advances I've made in construction best practices. I believe I'm the first builder to install triple pane windows in Silverton. I've installed them in 3 houses now. Triples increase the R value and decrease the heat loss of the windows. They also have sound dampening characteristics, which create a quieter experience for the homeowner. Another challenge for designing a house in cold climates is thermal bridging. This is the transfer of cold and heat through the wood framing members of a stick frame house. Stopping thermal bridging can be accomplished many ways. I've experimented with a product called rock wool installed on the exterior of the building under the siding. This brought our walls up to an R25, which is the new International Building Code recommendation. This also helps with creating a quieter home. I've now installed in-floor heating systems and used passive solar principles with success. I'm passionate about continuing to pursue performance-focused building practices while creating beautiful and historically appropriate houses here in Silverton. The Goransons liked the styling of my previous projects and requested a house that embodied the attributes found in those examples. I connected them with Stephen Gollin, a well-known architect in Silverton who, among other projects, designed the Hallmark House, the Whistle Stop Station, and the first house in Amble Mountain. Stephen sat on the historical review board in Durango for 10 years. After 2 years of planning, we came to a place this fall where everything came together. My schedule, Sub, Stephen, and the Goransons are all on the same page. Green light, enter your moratorium, red light. The property in question is not itself wet, but certainly the area surrounding the property is. But these wet areas are caused by poor drainage from the town's streets. This area would be classified as non-jurisdictional and not protected under the Army Corps of Engineers. My understanding from talking with multiple environmental scientists is that protecting trashy wetlands gives protecting quality wetlands a bad name. It's a classic case of throwing the baby out with the bathwater. In conclusion, I would recommend that you, the town board, reconsider the broad moratorium on building on or near all wetlands and instead focus your efforts on quality or jurisdictional wetlands, while also ensuring new homes not impede current drainage and possibly may improve upon poor drainage situations like the parcel in question here, the Goransons property. Thank you for your time. I look forward to following your progress on this important challenge to building in Silverton. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I have copies of these.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Do we have any other in-person public comment? Okay. If you're on Zoom and you'd like to make a public comment, please click raise hand. All right, seeing none, we'll close this public comment. We will have another public comment at the end of the meeting. And our first meeting agenda item, which is presentations and proclamations, Silverton's Land Use and Development Code update presented by Clarion Associates.
And I'll just start with Melina, can you promote Elizabeth? Thank you.
Elizabeth, you're muted, and let us know if you want us to promote anyone else on the team to panelist, or if it'll just be you.
I think it's Gabby and I.
Okay, awesome. You guys have the floor.
Great. Gabby, you got the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Thank
Pull
you.
that up.
Is it possible to angle the screen slightly so that we see it?
Better.
Maybe a little more.
And if you guys want to move your chairs to come around a little bit, if you can't see the screen, you're welcome to.
Let us know when everyone's comfy.
Okay, can we see that?
Yep, I think we're good.
All right. Good evening, everyone. I'm Elizabeth Garvin. I am a director with Clarion Associates in Denver, and I'm here with my colleague, our senior associate, Gabby Hart. And we're going to walk through an updated version of the presentation that we used a couple times when we were in town last week. Last week feels like a lifetime ago, 2 weeks ago. And I miss it already. And so let's get this going. We're going to tell you what's going on with the land use code update project, kind of what we're doing, what we're hearing, and where we're going next. So we are lucky enough to have been chosen to update the Silverton land use code. And to do that, we're working with some of the documents that the town has already put together, particularly the Compass Master Plan, the Housing Needs Assessment, and the Development Readiness Assessment. And we'll use all of those as our guidance for the code update. To be sure, some parts of the code need to be updated simply because they don't make sense, and there's no plan on the planet that's going to make them make sense. So we're going to get in and rewrite those so they work. But our goal is to make it so the town can more easily implement the goals and strategies in these various plans and review documents more easily and more effectively. And so the code works for a larger variety of people. So go ahead, Gabby. So our team, we have two members of our team, Clarion Associates and Urban Rural Continuum. We're working with Shea Coburn. Urban Rural Continuum is a small consulting firm located in Hotchkiss. They do a wide range of things, including housing assessments, planning work, and code work. We're also working with the town's on-call planner, community planning strategies, CPS, out of Idaho Springs. We're working with Sheila and Chris, and they're bringing information to the project that they've learned by working with you guys on a variety of different projects recently. And then the town itself is our partner on this project. Our goal is to make sure that we come out of this with a land use code that's written specifically for Silverton. And the way we do that is through depth of community involvement. So go ahead, Gabby. So we're starting out the project with 4 goals. And sometimes these are the 4 goals at the end of the project, and sometimes they take on a little more nuance as we go. But it's early days, so let's start with goal 1 is to update the regulations to better reflect and align with the future vision that's in the Compass Master Plan. Really important goal number 2 is to get to more predictable development outcomes by simplifying and clarifying the development standards and the procedures. We don't want to guess about how they get applied, and we don't want to guess about what's going to come from applying those regulations. Third goal is to combine the multiple chapters of the town's current land use code. So that's chapter 15 annexation, chapter 16 zoning, and chapter 17 subdivisions. And we kind of bring those together to make them more clear and consistent. And then finally, we want to make the land use code more user-friendly. It will still be a legal document at the end, but there is no rule that legal documents have to be written in a way that nobody understands them. So we can use images and graphics and plainer language to make the code work better all the way around. So go ahead, Gabby. So we met with, when we were in town, our preliminary meeting with our stakeholder group. So we had 10 members sitting in on the meeting. I think we had a couple of people who weren't able to be there, and we had a couple other people join us, trying to figure out if they actually wanted to participate in the group. The core group has a variety of representatives from across the community, and they represent engineering, environmental interest groups, business owners, housing advocates, residents, and others. The others will become more apparent as we start drilling down into the code drafting. We'll learn where people's priorities are. Always fun. The role of the group is to share knowledge and insights about the community. We're not necessarily setting them up to draft the code. We're not asking them to be zoning experts. That's what we're going to bring to the table. But we are asking them to share what they understand about Silverton, about how it functions, and about where it needs to go forward to be a vibrant community. We're also asking them to provide advice about concepts and issues. So we'll propose regulatory thoughts to them. Do we want to take a different approach to how we look at avalanches? Do we want to take a different approach to how we look at multifamily housing? And we'll get their feedback about what they think the community would invite for discussion and what they think the community would need to understand better before having discussion. And then we're asking them to help guide our outreach messaging. So how do we share out with the community where the project's going, and what information we need in terms of feedback? So this group usually evolves over the course of the project. Some people decide that it is really interesting and they want to stay involved. Some people usually join us along the way, and one or two decide that it's not what they wanted to spend their time doing, but they can participate in the project in other manners. So let's do next slide. So this is our project timeline. We have crammed a lot of information onto this slide. So I'm gonna back out a little bit and tell you, just in really simple explanation, we're doing 2 documents and multiple rounds of drafting. The first document is an annotated outline. And so that puts all the changes in place in the outline of a new land use code, so the community can look at it at a high level and tell us whether we're hitting all the important issues or not. And then the second document we'll do is a draft update of the land use code, and that will have an updated zoning map with it. So actually 3 documents, one's a map though. We will draft the annotated outline to publish on the town's website, and leave some hard copies out also within the next few weeks. We'll leave that open for community comment, and also as a learning tool to help people understand the topics we're going to cover in the project. As soon as we have that posted, we're going to switch gears and we're going to start drafting a full draft of the land use code. And so it'll take us probably about 4 to 6 months to do that, just depending on how deep we go on some of the issues, like some of the things that came up in public comment this evening. As we're doing that drafting, we'll be doing some leaning into some community learning sessions, like the community used successfully in the master plan project. And we will also be pulling out some key issues for community discussion. In May, at some point, we'll have the full draft ready to go. And then we'll spend the next 5 to 6 months, however long it takes, in the community talking about the draft, talking about the concepts, letting people know that the draft is out there for them to respond to, and getting that input and making changes as we need to. You'll see along the way that we have a variety of community meetings, stakeholder group meetings, and then some time set aside for adoption hearings. Across the top, you can see kind of where we are in the project. So it will be moving forward from here on out, and we'll be doing different things at different times. One of our goals is to keep the board pretty fully appraised of what we're up to. So if people ask you questions about what's going on, you know the latest. And we're really excited to be here this evening with our first update. Gabby, are there any other slides for me in there? Or are we going to switch? We're going to switch, and Gabby's going to do the presentation about the annotated outline, the first document you'll see from us fairly shortly.
Thanks, Elizabeth. And sorry, my camera is not on. My internet is apparently unstable, so it tends to do better if I don't turn my camera on. But somebody please flag if I suddenly sound like gibberish or I'm cutting out. But moving into a little bit of a preview of the annotated outline. Just a second. Here we go. So first and foremost, zoning 101, especially for those that might be watching this and are curious, what is a land use code? Why is it important? A few things. Zoning is what determines what can be built and what types of buildings are allowed and where certain businesses and activities can be located in those buildings. And then subdivision is the actual division of land into individual lots. And also that contains the types of standards that ensure that as the town develops and subdivides, there are necessary services and facilities to support the development of those lots. And why is that important? Well, all of these things determine where the community can find housing, how they can access services and what types of services are available, access to parks and schools, and also it provides employment opportunities for residents. And then on a broad scale, zoning does help implement the vision for the future of the community, which you all just got done with a very thorough and great effort with the master plan. So we want to make sure that your land use code supports that. In general, we want to make sure that we are giving the town a user-friendly code. And that means anyone who uses it, everyone from staff who's in it day to day, to builders, to a resident who may be curious what they could do on their property. So to do that, we like to establish a clear organization of information, improve the document and page layout. The photo on the left is from the current zone district. And then we want to move towards more of the photos on the right. So more graphics, more illustrations, more tables, just simpler visual ways of showing information for everyone to use. And this looks like a lot because it is, but generally speaking, this is a list of topics that are included in the land use code. And these are not set in stone, but we just wanted to show what is typically in and addressed by a land use code. So you have everything from the zoning districts and associated use standards to development standards and subdivision design, environmentally sensitive lands, which we heard a lot about and is very important in Silverton. Mobility, parking, landscaping, outdoor lighting, another important topic in Silverton, signs, and then also all of the administration and procedural content goes in the code as well. So how different types of applications move through the process, which decision-making body makes the decisions. And then also we include just general definitions and measurements for everyone to make sure they're on the same page about what different terms mean. And so what that generally looks like, and we like to include this again, just for those who might not live and breathe zoning and development like we do. But basically, it goes from moving from the zoning districts, and then you might subdivide a lot to build on it. You have to take into consideration things like the site plan, the landscaping, the location of certain of the buildings on the lot, and then you actually build it and go through the application process, which might include a public hearing. So just a preview of some of the thoughts we've had and what type of content will go into these particular sections of the annotated outline and then the code. The first big portion are the zoning districts and use standards. And so these really are one of the main places where we can implement the vision set by the Compass Master Plan, and how different uses and different land uses are supposed to be distributed throughout the town. It allows us to limit the impacts of certain businesses and activities to increase housing options. And then this is also where we'll explore allowing a greater mix of uses in more areas of Silverton. The environmentally sensitive lands. So this section answers the question about how the town identifies and reviews development for constraints based on certain environmentally sensitive lands, including steep slopes, the avalanche hazard areas, floodplains, wetlands, and also we're looking at wildfire hazard areas as well. For mobility, connectivity, and parking, we look to answer the question, how can the town improve pedestrian and bicycle infrastructure? Maybe there's an opportunity for some bicycle parking and adding bike racks. And then how does Silverton's street parking and unpaved streets impact redevelopment and the reuse of buildings? This is something that came up a bit when we were in town. And so this section will include standards that are unique to Silverton because of the unique built environment and the unique infrastructure. And so that is where we will handle those issues. And then there's also the landscaping, site, and lighting standards. So exploring if Silverton needs fire-wise and water-wise standards. Further exploring the types of regulations that are required for development in a dark sky community. And then also just across the board, how can we open up opportunities for adaptive reuse or redevelopment of existing sites? So we just wanted to give a little recap of our October outreach. We had our first meeting with the stakeholder group. We had 2 coffee and conversation meetings where we set up at Elevated Coffee and Coffee Bear, and just sort of polled people or welcomed them into conversation, gave out about the project sheets. And then we did have our organized land use code open house, where we did have a great discussion with those attending about what's working well and what might not be working so well related to development. And so it was really nice to have that participation, especially early on in the project. So what we heard throughout all of that and from all of our initial meetings with staff is that there needs to be more clarity throughout the regulations. Right now, there are some, the lack of clarity is resulting in inconsistent interpretation. And so there is a desire to make that more consistent. Adding more housing options, especially affordable housing. A focus on locals was very important. We talked a lot about barriers to redevelopment and how we could reuse and renovate existing buildings. Snow storage, obviously a very big topic that came up a lot. And so that will be something that we can address and work on in the zoning code. The tension between historic preservation and new development came up, as well as trying to find the balance between whether to incentivize or to encourage more jobs or more housing, or if it needs to be an equal balance of the two, the natural hazards and the impacts of out-of-town property owners. So we did hear a pretty wide range of things, but all of these, we do think that we can help via this land use code update. And we know that we'll get into more details about all of these and that this list will get longer, but we were excited that we got such good turnout and good feedback, even as we said, early in this process. And if you do, anyone who was involved, or if you are speaking with someone who did give us feedback, want to reiterate that this is just the beginning of the project and we welcome feedback throughout the entirety of the project. This was not a one-time thing. This was not the only moment to have residents' voices heard. We will be out and about and requesting a lot more input in the next year. So our next steps, our annotated outline should be out end of next week, if not maybe the week after. Our main place to find information is the project website, which is silvertonluc.org. And that is sort of the one-stop shop for all things land use code update. You can sign up for project updates. Any document we post will go there, and other project information, as well as if we've got some surveys, those will all be posted on the website. But that is it from us. So we welcome any initial questions you may have or feedback you have for us at this time.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. An exciting project that is going to have a lot of impact on our community. Do you guys have any questions or feedback?
I was actually able to make it to one of the meetings.
Nice.
So I was able to ask all the questions there, but I would encourage everybody in the community to weigh in. I think it should be a collaborative process.
Yeah, I think it's really exciting to have you. It feels like the design that we had in place for, working with the master plan, undergoing that whole process. And then the natural next step is to use that master plan to inform the code rewrite and updates. And I think that it's really exciting to see just see us going in that direction and making it happen. And you guys have your arms around a lot of the really important topics that we've been talking about for years. And I just had kind of a curiosity. I'm just wondering, as you've reviewed, I'm sure many pages of documents from plans to, I don't know, meeting notes or whatever it is that you're reviewing as you're getting to know the project. If you've noticed areas where plans conflict, or if you see generally you have a lot of alignment here and, haven't noticed that.
So I'll go first, and Gabby, you can jump in. It's always the case where when you're doing a general plan, like the master plan, you're kind of, shooting for the stars and throwing a little bit of everything in there. And then we see, as we're looking at the housing needs assessment, or we're looking at the development readiness assessment,
Right.
that we're going to have to sort some details out. One of the first things that we kind of landed on was that the plan's future land use map maybe isn't going to get the town. It may be broad. It may not reflect where we end up completely with this project. And so those are just like some really beginning thoughts about it. What we tend to do when we bump into stuff like that, and it happens everywhere on every project, is we try to tease out what the policy question is and send that back to you guys so we can get that next level of guidance that we need to move on to something. So, we might be in drafting zone districts next and say, hey, we think that there are some, parts of downtown that you really want to say, we're going to lean a little more residential here, or we're going to lean a lot more into mixed use here. And either we are like in the weeds of the plan, or we're in a more nebulous part of any of the plans. And so we'll make sure that we flag that and say, okay, this is where we think we want to go. Do you guys want to give us some more guidance? Because that is one of the ways we know that we're kind of the last layer right before development. This project is like where all those details come in to focus. And they didn't need to come into focus on some of the earlier planning efforts. So we will find areas, maybe not of straight up conflict, but of definite multiple choices. And so that's when we'll turn around and say, we want to go with choice C, and here's why. But we definitely need to hear from the board about whether you prefer choice A, or whether there's some other conversation we need to be having within the community to clarify what's going on here.
Yeah,
So-
that was a great answer. Thank you for teasing that out.
Yeah, that is definitely going to be one of the more interesting things that we do.
I just want to say I'm really hopeful and excited about the work that you guys are doing. Like Sally said, I think this is a great next step, and I feel really encouraged that we're like a year from adopting the master plan, and we're potentially a year from having an updated land use code. So appreciate the work. I think there were two things of feedback that I've kind of heard, and the first is, I think, on your radar, but around mobility and how people move through town, especially as we start to build out in kind of more fringe areas of town. And so thinking about how kids get to school and how people walk to the library and just the movement of people through town. I think I've been in a variety of communities where that got thought of later, after structures and things were built. And then there's kind of challenges for how the actual movement of cars, bicycles, feet happens. So mobility is on my mind. And then another thing I just think to have on our radar is certainly housing is a super big priority. And to me, it's really about preserving the soul of the community and who can live here. But in addition to that, I think having on our radar that we make sure that everything is allowed somewhere. So what I mean by that is if we stray so far that most of our areas become residential, that could benefit us in the near term, but in the long term, we end up with, we don't have any option for this light industrial to go here, or for a camper manufacturer to set up shop, or whatever it is. So making sure we have pockets in town. And part of that may be tricky because maybe it belongs more in the county and that's a different land use code, but just thinking as we think about the zoning that everything can belong somewhere. And then the last question I had for you guys is kind of, I think you reassured me in the slides, but like, how does this stay focused on implementing the master plan and not like rehashing components of the master plan?
Right.
It's a good question. We don't want to rehash the master plan. We'll never move forward if we do that. But necessarily, we're going to have to move bigger concepts into details.
Yeah.
And so our role is to kind of center everybody on the master plan. And so when we find our stakeholder group going astray or community going astray, we do pretty purposefully say, okay, we're going to go back and double check because the plan's going to tell us something about this. And then we'll say within the framework of the plan, how are we going to make XYZ happen? And so I think the idea of balancing housing and employment is going to be one of those places where we're going to have to sort out what goes where. But we know that they both need to exist. So the question will never be, well, let's just rethink whether or not we want employment at all. But how are we going to find opportunities to make that happen within the town? So we try to leave the plan as our ceiling. We don't want to go above it. That work is done. And it's different than this project. So we stay very mindful of that.
Great, thank you.
For community members that may have missed the October information sessions or may in the future miss an opportunity for engagement, what's the best way for them to communicate with you and provide feedback?
That would be the website. The website has the project email, and I can't remember currently if there is just sort of an open send us a comment option. If there's not, we will add one just for these kind of in between times. But when we post documents, we'll have a specific survey link for people to give us our comments on the document. But the website is definitely where everything is going to sort of be hosted. And we'll send out go ahead.
Go ahead, Gabby. I was gonna say, I'm gonna give the old person answer. Let me give you 2 secs and then I'll shove it back to you. So one of the things that is it's less frequent over time, right? When we were first switching to web-based work, we often had communities with residents that preferred not to communicate that way. And so we still try to make options for accepting letters and doing our surveys in hard copy format and finding alternative ways for people to participate that is not necessarily electronic. And so one of the things we'll do in working with your staff is to make sure that if we feel like there is that need for some more old school outreach, it's available to the community, however they feel like communicating about the project.
Great, thank you. Hey, Jim,
Gabby, I
did you have,
stepped on you. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Jim, all good? Nice.
Well, I just dipped my toes in the website and it has a really easy contact button.
Cool. Well, great. Anything else from the board? Well, wonderful. Thank you both so much for joining us tonight. Thank you to you and your teams for doing this project. I'm very excited to see where it leads us.
Thank
Thank
you
you so
all.
much.
We're all looking forward to the next year-ish. It's going to be fun.
Fantastic. Okay. So moving on to the next item on our agenda, it's new business 4A, Silverton Creative District presentation and partner request.
Lisa, I have your PowerPoint on here. I'm gonna promote myself and then pull it up here, okay? Okay.
You'll have 3 minutes. I'm just kidding.
Here we go. All right, we can go right ahead to the next slide, please. Good evening. I think you all know my name is Lisa Branner. I'm the chair of the Silverton Creative District. And I wanted to say thank you first and foremost for the opportunity to come and update the board about our progress in the last year and recap some successes. And then we're also going to talk a little bit about where we're headed in the future. I think you're all aware that the Creative District is a nonprofit organization. We're fully volunteer run at this point in time, and a nonprofit 501c3 founded in 2019. I'm the current board chair. Our other board members are Wes Berg, Lori Nixon, Hillary Cable, Tiffany Decay, and Laurel Foster. And you can go ahead to the next slide. Our mission is to support the growth and sustainability of arts and culture here in Silverton and San Juan County. And we essentially have a twofold goal. We're looking to enhance quality of life for the people who live here. And in addition to that, diversify and strengthen the local economy. So all of the projects that we work on strive toward those two things. Next slide, please. We have 5 key programs as it currently stands. First Friday Art Walks. This is the 4th year we've done that. And that's every Friday, first Friday, June through September. We've been having anywhere from a dozen to 20 shops participating. And the goal here is to encourage shopping and just interaction in the downtown area. This year, in cooperation with the 9318 Collective, we did a variety of different themes. So each month had a different theme. In June, it was Build Your Art Kit, for example. So the kids that went around got to get coloring, pencils, and construction paper at each different stop along the way. So not only driving traffic into the shops and encouraging creativity in the next generation. And there's always a variety of activities going on at all the different participating businesses. We also partnered up with the Powerhouse this year, and they hosted a series of workshops and after parties on those same evenings. So we just kind of kept the party rolling from downtown and went out to the Powerhouse, supporting what those guys are working on out there. Next slide, please. Silverton Summer Sounds, I think you're all pretty familiar with. This year was the 6th year that the concert series happened and the 2nd year that the Creative District organized it. We did 4 concerts, each with 2 musical acts. We were able to this year bring in some bigger name headliners, and I think we really saw the impact that could have with the attendance that we had at these events. We were up 25% over last year's attendance, and at the September concert, we had more than 400 people show up. So really impressive growth with that particular event. The other goal that we had for this year was to continue to give back in the community. So we're hiring local opening talent for all of those shows. And then we did have a few key paid event positions this year for super important tasks where we really needed reliability. That's not to say that we don't have wonderful volunteers. We had more than 72 show up to help out. And town staff really get some kudos as well. Parks and facilities were amazing this year, helping mobilize with setup and breakdown, and really just made our lives a little bit easier in organizing the series. So true partnership, obviously, here between the town and the creative district, between funding and lending us your staff, and making this happen. Really great, free and family-friendly activity for the community. All right, we can move on to the next slide. Sort of new this year was Silverton Creates, which was an evolution of the arts festival that we resurrected last year. And we had a lot of feedback from the community about bringing the focus to be more local and authentic to Silverton. We didn't see as many of our local artists participating last year, and we really exist to support our local art community. So that was a real focus for us this year, was restructuring to better accommodate them. And the creative district organized 3 key anchor events. We did an open studio tour, the street fair on Blair, and then a bonus concert. But there were more than 30 events happening all over town over the course of that 3 days. And those were all organized by community members. So different businesses, nonprofits, individuals stepped up and contributed to the weekend. We had more than 640 participants and 33 volunteers in addition to the event organizers that helped us out. Next slide, please. Coming up in December, we'll have the annual mistletoe market that's happening on the 8th over at Kendall. And we typically have more than 20 vendors, more than 100 community members show up. Free activities. Can't wait to hear the kids caroling again. That's always a highlight of the event. And that just always has a nice, holiday vibe and supports our local artists and craftspeople. Next slide, please. New this year, we started a quarterly gathering of the creatives in the community that we're calling the Creatives Roundtable. And the idea here is to provide opportunities for community members at large, but also our creative community to connect. Looking to foster partnerships and collaboration, and also build a collective voice for the arts community here in town. So we've done a couple of those so far. They happen on, different days and times throughout the year, just to kind of be flexible so that hopefully we're hitting somebody's, availability in their schedule since everybody's so busy. Next slide, please. Something that is equally important to our programming and our signature events is partnering with other entities in town. As an umbrella arts organization, our goal is really to nurture and support other creative endeavors. So this is a growing list of some of the partnerships that we have in town. I'll highlight a few. Mountain Film on Tour is one that we are serving as a fiscal agent for. Brendan Getz is actually the organizer, but we're letting him operate under our nonprofit umbrella for the purposes of fundraising and helping make that happen. That'll be coming back January 13th this year. Working with the Powerhouse in any way that we can to support their efforts. Recently, we were out there for their harvest market and did Sugar Skull rock painting activity. 9318 Collective, of course, for First Fridays. Silverton School, we did a youth pottery project recently with them that we raised the funds to carry on. And then, of course, Town of Silverton, major partner for us. We did the cardboard box sled derby creation workshop as part of Snowscape. 4th of July, we did a build your own kazoo workshop for the kids, which I'm sure was really annoying for the parents of participating children, but we got a kick out of that. And of course, as I mentioned, Summer Sounds. Next slide, please. Speaking of town partnership, in September, we partnered with the town for the Anisi Park grand opening. Excuse me, frog in my throat. Which we dovetailed with the Silverton Creates event to amplify the impact of both of those things. So that featured live performances, street fair. There was a dedication ceremony for the park and the stage. The preschool did a pancake breakfast on Sunday morning that raised a significant amount of money for that organization. We had more than 200 people come through the info center on Saturday and almost as many on Sunday, and about 250 at the concert on Saturday night. I'm going to grab some water here before I lose my voice. All right. So regaining my train of thought there, once again, parks and facilities was tremendous for us in this partnership. We could not have done an event in 2 different locations in the same weekend without their assistance. So I really want to give a shout out to the staff. Next slide, please. So all told, we're counting about 2,500 participants or more this year that participated in Creative District programs. And we're well poised at this point for continued growth and success and building on that momentum that we've built over the last 5 years. So what's next for us in the coming year and beyond? First and foremost, continuing the core programs and continuing to improve them. We do surveys each year after our events to get feedback from the community, and then we take that to heart and we really look to constantly streamline and improve our programs. We are looking to further evolve the Silverton Creates event. I think ultimately the goal is an arts and music festival that might be a whole weekend long. We're going to try to streamline this year by doing it in 1 location instead of dividing our energy between 2. And there is the opportunity for dovetailing with Summer Sounds again. So Friday night concert, arts and crafts festival, and music all day in the park on Saturday. And then potentially we've had some conversation with Nathan Baxter about maybe doing another bonus concert to help celebrate the 150th anniversary. The other thing that is on our radar and probably our top priority this year is working toward that Creative District certification. So we have been working toward that since day 1. COVID definitely took the wind out of our sails right as our organization was getting going. But I think, 2022, we really came out strong with great programming. And we are now in stage 2 of a 3-stage process that the state defines the Call Yourself Creative process. It's a prerequisite to being able to apply for Creative District status. So we're wrapping up the last bit of stage 2 and we'll be moving into stage 3 this coming year. That includes a strategic plan for the organization. We are looking to identify sustainable funding mechanisms for the organization, and then we are required to have paid staff. And I think the state requires that because they know that volunteers only have so much capacity. And we've kind of hit the ceiling on our capacity at this point. There are 6, soon to be 7 board members on the Creative District Board, and we're pretty much maxed out. We can't really add more to our plates without building some capacity. And paid staff will be part of that next step. So the research I've done that looks a little bit different in every community. Every creative district is kind of unique to its own environment. So we'll be looking at that as part of our strategic planning processes. What does that look like for the creative district and what works here in Silverton? So jumping off from the concept of creative districts and why that's important for the community, that is detailed quite a bit in the request letter. But I did just want to mention in 2019, which is the most recent data we have, the creative industries generated $13.7 billion in the state of Colorado. That's greater than mining or transportation. There are now more than 30 creative districts in the state. And that's grown over the last 10 plus years from when this program was initiated by the governor. And becoming a creative district is going to allow us to leverage many more resources than we can right now. As a nonprofit, we already have the ability to go after outside funding from state or federal sources, bring those dollars here and recirculate them. But there are particular things that we can leverage as a creative district. So there's specific funding that the state offers, there's technical assistance, there's quite a bit of marketing assistance that we can do, and we can piggyback on regional efforts with other creative districts, and we are surrounded by them. Durango has one, Telluride, Mancos, Ridgeway, Uray is working on theirs. I want to mention, knowing that affordable housing is a huge focus for our community, that one of those programs that we could leverage when we have creative district status is called Space to Create. And Ridgeway just completed a project that brought 30 live units targeted to the creative community to their downtown area. So they are looking at, this project in particular, and the program is looking at ways to support creative industry, and support sustainable housing in the communities that have creative districts. So that's something we could leverage as a community once we have that status. Next slide, please. So in summation, the creative district can be a really valuable partner for the town. The programs we provide are largely free to the community, so they're accessible to everyone. We are strengthening the social fabric of our community. If you come out to the concerts, you see everyone from all walks of life in town. And we're working to unify a collective voice for our creative community and really elevate all of the artists that are living and working here. As I mentioned, we can leverage outside funding. We're recirculating those dollars locally, and the benefits really are widespread to all businesses in the community. The restaurants benefit, the lodgers benefit, and creative districts, when you look at the definition of that the state has, they are intended to have all kinds of uses in them, but also a strong creative presence, which our downtown has. So we are well primed for that. Next slide, please. So how the town of Silverton can help. We've already talked about capacity building being critical for our success moving forward. And I want to thank the town again for thought leadership and vision in this regard. You all have provided tremendous support to our organization since its infancy. And I'd really love to see that continue so that we can continue building on the momentum for the benefit of the entire community. Our Summer Sounds contract runs through 2024. We are very interested in renewing that in 2025 and beyond. Obviously, there's a request before you for increased operating support. And also, I think we are open to creative thinking about other ways that the town can lend resources and support to the work that we're doing. And that's all I really have for you this evening, unless you have questions.
Thank you. What do you all think?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Every year, your presentations are really thorough and they span kind of the scope of the year and the cross section of the community. And like, there's such a variety of impact that this organization has in the community, from youth to locals to visitors. And it's exciting to see the growth and the move towards the actual status of a certified creative district.
We're getting closer. Yeah, we've been working pretty.
That's a really big deal.
Check the boxes on that list, and there's really just a few remaining requirements. The strategic plan is kind of a big one. And I imagine that'll take a lot of energy and effort, but yeah, I really appreciate actually the fact that the Office of Economic Development and International Trade makes you jump through all of those hoops, because you are already proving before you get to even apply that you have laid that solid foundation. And yeah, we're getting close as an organization. So
I am a huge fan of all of the work that the Silverton Creative District has done. This place has gotten so lively during the summers between the art walks and the powerhouse after parties. I love that's all joined together. So thank you so much for all the work that you guys have done.
well, thank you. And really, we are not responsible for all of it. It's the whole creative community here that's doing it. It's amazing how many artists there are. I was looking through the photos as I was putting the presentation together from the Silverton Creates weekend. And it's really incredible how many creative people we have here. And I feel really privileged that we are able to do work that's elevating their efforts.
Well, Wes and Lori are back there too. And I just wanted to thank you and the whole board, because there's a lot of effort that went into it this year. And I think you guys have really demonstrated a high level of success in executing events, recruiting volunteers, filling empty board positions. Like, there's a lot of energy and enthusiasm, and you've demonstrated real staying power. I think we've been getting a real bargain as the town. And so I think it'd be fun to look for different ways of support. But I think it's just been neat to see you adapt post-pandemic. And as you've seen different creative efforts come forward, you've just been very supportive in however you can. And that's been really exciting to see. So I think it's been a great component of furthering the master plan and really enriching the community. So thanks for the work.
Yeah, I think that the administration and execution by the Silverton Creative District is impressive. And the impact is disproportionate to the size of the number of people contributing. And so it's really cool to see that happening in our community. And I definitely support the proposal. So thank you.
Thank you.
Jim, anything on your end?
What can I say that hasn't been said? Lisa, the board, all the volunteers have done an incredible job year over year. And you bring the town a gift with everything you do. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Anything else to add, or Gloria, anything on your end?
We don't, yeah, and we don't have to decide on the additional ask tonight. We'll be having a work session on the budget and partners and nonprofits on November 6th. So if we don't, yeah, it would probably be better to have that conversation with everything else as well.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you.
Lisa.
Have a great night.
All right, continuing our parade of how awesome Silverton is. Next item on our agenda is the MOU with Silverton Snowmobile Club for winter trails grooming services and an update from Jim.
And I just wanted to thank Jim. Loki came in and we rejiggered our contract that we had last year into more of a memorandum of understanding, since the services they provide aren't exactly contract based, but more like helping us out with our grooming and grant writing and funding for those grooming trails. So it's actually quite comprehensive what the Silverton Snowmobile Club provides in capacity for the town. I assume Jim is up at the podium, so I'll let him go.
Jim and Levi are here.
Great, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having us tonight. This is my son Levi. I'm Jim Loki, of course. We're the groomers for the Silverton Snowmobile Club. We're running about 104 miles of trail system. The biggest family orientated grooming is all pretty much takes place on Mullis Pass. And that's where we utilize the buildings of the Mullis Lake, where they have the store in the summer. We utilize that for our club events, along with we keep the snowcat there. We keep the tractor inside of the barn, and that's where we meet and congregate. And if we have to go out on a search and rescue, we all base out of that Mullis Lake building, because it's kind of like a communication center where we can talk with everybody. We're also subcontracting to the town of Silverton. And what I mean by that is that we pay the town of Silverton on the operations down here, where we send the other snowcat will go to Deer Park, the River Road, Cunningham, Lackawanna. And then the town, of course, they do the town trail, and then they handle the ski hill. And it's been working out fairly well over the last two cats that we can help get put in the door with those, and it's worked real good. Basically, we're funded by Colorado State Parks, and that's provided by how many miles of operation that we do, and then we're paid according to how much we accomplish and get done. We're also plowing the parking lot with the Silverton Snowmobile Club, because you can't use the snowcats to do parking lots. They're not ground friendly. So that's why we have the trucks, and then we have the tractor that we use with the big blower. And these things are, we've been working with the town on keeping that parking lot open, to keep it, because without that parking lot, nobody has anywhere to go. That's how the parking lot got started. Everybody go home.
Yep, and we've opened it up a bunch. We go into the RV sites and everything, and then I use the snow blower to go back into those. I have to mark all the rocks just to But yeah, it's been great. We get plenty of skiers, snowmobilers, fat tire bike riders now. So it's really cool to see everybody kind of join together and have room in the parking lot to be able to go up there.
I just wanted to say thank you to you both for spearheading this. I think it is such a great example of how we just have people step up in this town for a whole variety of interests. Like you said, Levi, I've seen all kinds of winter users out there, and I think this is just such a great asset. We got our boys in 1980s moto ski this last winter, and so that was great fun. And I've just noticed just all the groups that are out there, everybody's willing to help out, dig you out, turn you around, give you a spare belt. And so it's just been a really great crowd to be a part of, and just really appreciate you stepping up to make it happen. And like Gloria said, to really extend the capacity of the town, we'll make it an option to have those trails open.
Thanks, you guys.
Oh, it's the best, you guys. It just changes the whole winter experience. It's so awesome.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's fun up there.
It's so fun.
Yeah, we get a lot of positive feedback about it.
Nice.
Yeah, we've just finished all our services. We're ready to go.
Nice.
Snow caps are ready in position. Track.
And you guys teed us up for the cap that's now down here in town too, which is something we should acknowledge and be grateful for.
Yes. Yeah, that's cap number 2 for the town.
Yeah.
And we try and work those deals in when we're renewing our caps to hand those down. And that's where they came up with first it was the blue bison, and now it's the silver bison. And of course, the newer equipment with the most use goes to Molus. Even more miles down here in the valley, a lot of it doesn't get covered at times because of avalanche, but the amount of use that we use up at Molus, especially up on the benches, is just, there's more wear and tear, even though it's not as big.
Yeah. Well, we're glad you're back.
Yeah. Gloria, are you looking for us to make a motion to approve the MOU?
Yes,
Or-
please.
So moved.
Second?
Motion to approve the MOU.
Second.
Okay, great. Roll call, please.
Trustee Edwards?
Yes.
Trustee Cranker?
Yes.
Trustee Harper?
Yes.
Trustee Birma?
Yeah.
Mayor Pro Tem Barney?
Yes.
Mayor Furman?
Yes. Okay, great.
All right, thank you.
Look forward to another awesome year.
Okay.
Thank you guys so much.
Yeah, thank you. And the next item on our agenda is new business item 4C, which is an RFP for the Brownfield Multipurpose Grant.
So as you all know, we received 800,000 from the EPA for the assessment, planning and cleanup of multiple sites within and around town. And so this is the RFP seeking a qualified environmental professional to assist with the implementation of that grant. If you have any questions, I'll take them, but it's pretty straightforward RFP.
Very detailed.
Yeah, federal grants.
Yeah, you're like
stricter.
but I was reading like prescriptive, maybe is the right word.
Sampling analysis, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of deliverables with this grant. And I've already been in contact with a lot of environmental firms that are super interested in working on this project. So I anticipate multiple really high quality proposals.
And in the RFP, there was not a specific budget advertised.
Yeah, so part of this process is going to be identifying our priority sites and coming up with a plan.
Yeah.
So we don't have a very concrete budget because there's still projects to be planned. And all of these projects will include a lot of community engagement and public meetings and potentially a brownfields task force to make these decisions.
So are you expecting a respondent to kind of offer a menu of options? Like if you want to do all 3 of these projects, it's X, or I guess if I were thinking of responding to this, is it pretty clear how folks would budget it out and the town or the board would be picking the priorities through a future process?
Yeah, so in their fee schedule, they would talk about kind of their a kind of ballpark estimate of what like a phase one for a certain size property would look like, a phase two, what these deliverables would look like for property sizes, but it really is gonna kind of the budget will kind of come together as we pick our priority sites and create a plan for what we're going to address in what order.
And the process for picking those priority sites would be done in conjunction with this consultant or through this particular consultant?
Yeah, this consultant would absolutely play a role in that, as well as staff and the community and the board of trustees. And we have an idea of what our priority sites are. It really just kind of comes down to what are we going to do first? Can we do them all next spring, next summer? We have our phase one of the Zanoni property done. We got that done before this went out, which is awesome. And we will have the phase two and the environmental cleanup plan done by probably the winter. And so we might choose to prioritize the Zanoni property and do the cleanup right away. And that might be their first project. But that will kind of be a conversation for staff, the community, the board, and these consultants.
Any other questions from trustees?
And this one, we will need a motion to release the RFP.
And I'll make motion to release the RFP for brownfield multipurpose grants.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Trustee Edwards,
Yes.
trustee Cranker,
Yes.
trustee Harper,
Yes.
trustee Bearma,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Barney,
Yes.
Mayor Furman.
Yes.
Thank you, guys. And we should have those proposals at the December meeting.
Thank you. All right, next is item 5 of our agenda, consideration to approve the consent agenda items.
And there's several things I wanted to point out here. Our payroll didn't give us the usual form that it gave us, so it does look a little funny when you're looking through payroll, but it does give you the bottom line. And then I wanted to point out the sales tax spreadsheet in your packet, as its format and context has changed. So the county distributes 4% of the sales tax to the town, and the state distributes another 1% of the sales tax directly to the town. And previous sales tax reports only showed the 4%. And with this new report, it combines those, the 1 and the 4% for the full 5%. And then it's also a better way to compare with previous years. So I've been asking for help on this one, and Keith Cranker actually helped me out putting together an Excel spreadsheet that would capture all of this. So I wanted to say thank you to him.
Am I understanding it correctly where the negative percentages and numbers are based on this being an incomplete year and it's compared to the full prior year to date?
See what you're saying here.
I think I had that question as well. I think it's comparing to the previous year. So for example, like if you're looking at 2019 where it says 37,510 change from previous year, that's comparing that year to 2018. Or the 4,384 under 2022, that's the increase from 2019. So for all the columns that are the change from previous year, that's comparing to the previous year, not like this year compared to 2019 or this year compared to 2020. Is that your question?
Yeah, got it. And then and also obviously it shows November and December, which aren't calculated yet. So those are a full negative based on the prior year, except that under the town line item, it's showing the aggregate total as the negative as opposed to just the town negative. Because we didn't have the 1% calculated last year. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. I think once I get used to it, this is definitely a super helpful, better format. Any other questions or comments or discussion around the consent agenda items?
I do have an update. So Nathan and I have been working on an event that will be happening next Sunday. So I wanted to flag that for everybody. And I will also be recusing from approving the consent agenda because my event is in it. But we're planning a fall resource fair. It's happening on Sunday, the 29th from 12 to 3 at Kendall. And basically the kind of focus of this event is one, to just provide a fun kind of Halloween carnival for local families and kids. And with a grant from the El Pomar Foundation, we're able to provide bounce houses and free lunch. But then in addition to that, in talking with Silverton School and the preschool and public health, we all kind of agreed that there are a variety of resources that are available in the region for San Juan County residents that a lot of people don't know are available. So whether that's tax help or help with utility bills or immigration support or insurance enrollment support or emergency rental assistance. There's a whole variety of organizations, both in Durango and even locally, that provide services to residents that people just don't know is available or don't know that they qualify for. So we're bringing up around 17 partners from the area, both local and regional, and they'll be staffing kind of like partner tables, like you think of vendor tables at the fair. And so folks can come and chat with them, get more information about the services they provide, what might be available to them. And there'll be carnival games at each booth and also a bunch of raffle tickets. So come visit, come out, get some free lunch. It's open to everyone, not just kids and families. So really encourage everybody to attend. Becky with Public Health will also be doing flu vaccines and COVID vaccines. And then the new medical clinic in town, Innovation, they will be offering lab draws for a variety of blood work, blood pressure checks, and they'll have a doctor up doing foot exams. So if any of those things apply to you, come on out, and it's sure to be a good time connecting, hanging out, having fun. So 12 to 3 at Kendall on Sunday.
Nice, I see. So it's kind of in conjunction with the trunk or treat.
Yes, so basically the Halloween parade will start like it has in the years past at Silverton Hardware. That starts at 11, and then everybody will parade, and instead of ending at Memorial Park, we'll just cross the bridge and march on over to Kendall, where all the festivities will be happening. And then trunk or treat, if folks want to give candy out of their cars, strangers giving candy to kids from their cars. Only encourage this day only. That'll happen also in the parking lot of Kendall. So we're hoping for good weather and no snow. So again, all ages, bring everybody, free lunch, lots of fun. Any other questions on it? And there's a whole bunch of things happening that weekend. We're doing Town of Silverton scavenger hunt. The library's hosting a party on Friday. Liv is hosting a movie night Saturday night, family friendly. So it is a jam-packed Halloween weekend.
Silverton loves Halloween. I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Trustee Edwards?
Yes.
Trustee Cranker?
I'll abstain.
Oh, okay. Trustee Harper?
Absolutely, yes.
Trustee Birma?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Barney?
Yes.
Mayor Furman?
Yes.
Can I say something really quick? I forgot we should mention that Melina finished her master's degree and that was in there, and we need to just like celebrate that, Melina. That's a lot of work.
Staff
Oh,
report.
staff report.
not
Sorry.
consent agenda.
Sorry.
I know, I got excited about that.
Great. So the next agenda item is staff reports.
Sorry, jump the gun. Way to go.
Thank you.
What a great accomplishment.
I just wanted to give a huge congratulations to Melina. It was about, almost a year ago, she came to me and said that she wanted to get her master's. And so to complete that in that time frame is just incredible. And it speaks to just how focused and really intelligent Melina is, and we're very lucky to have her.
Woo. The master's, and I still struggle with it. Thank you.
And then as far as staff reports go, I do want to give a shout out as well to Beth Kramer, who just was awarded the Economic Development Council of Colorado's Rookie of the Year last week. So I wanted to say congratulations to her as well.
Awesome. Yeah, congrats, Beth.
I just had a couple of questions for you, Lucy, kind of looking at to public comment that we had earlier. Have 2 or 3 applications come in for?
We've had 3 applications.
3 applications.
Gotten, we've informed them that they are paused.
Really? Okay. And then I noticed that you said inventory is underway. That sounds great. And I guess I was just confused because I thought we were waiting until the spring, or like, how is that timing working? And can you elaborate on that for us?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we are doing an inventory right now of wetlands. And we will be doing a functional assessment of those inventoried wetlands in the spring. So Ironwood was confident that they'd be able to produce an inventory, but they requested that we wait until the spring to do the functional assessment. But we should have an areas of concerns type map with information on where the water is coming from. So that I think is going to be a really key part of the way we look at this inventory. We should have that by December.
Thanks.
Yeah, so we're making plans on how we are going to present that information, hopefully at one of the December meetings.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, and I appreciate that comment, Sally, because I just do think it is important as we continue to work forward in the land use code update and in this wetlands discussion of just recognizing the real lives that are impacted by the variety of decisions we made. So I still feel like we're moving forward in an effective way, but also recognizing the serious ramifications to people's lives one way or another, right, as we work on this. Gloria, I had one question for you that maybe would be helpful for a public update. I've gotten a couple questions on this. I know we've had on the staff reports that we've submitted the wastewater grant update, or submitted the wastewater grant. And so I've had people ask me, what's going on with that? What's the timing? What do we know? So just for the public's benefit, if you want to clarify.
Sure. So we have 2 grants in progress. One's with the USDA, and that is for our collection system for the sewage. That's our sewage pipes. And we are supposed to know something in October. So we are in October right now and awaiting how much they would want to grant us, what the loan terms would look like. And yeah, we've talked to them several times and just kind of awaiting that letter. And then for the second loan application, that's actually for the plant itself. We have submitted our application to be a disadvantaged community, and we are waiting on that. The timeline on that is kind of uncertain. They didn't really give us a date on when we would know if we had gotten accepted as a community, a disadvantaged community, which would really reduce the loan amount and the terms. So
great, thanks. And then the Department of Transportation grant, we are still awaiting word on that.
Yes,
right?
yes. So I think that was in Lucy's staff report from a couple weeks ago, but we are still eligible and still in the running for that Department of Transportation grant.
And we should know by December is what I've been told.
Great.
Well, wonderful. As always, great job, staff.
Yeah,
And if you
thanks,
haven't
Chris.
come to town hall to see how spooky it is, I encourage you to do so. Very spooky.
I get scared every day.
Because of the decoration.
What?
I said,
Because of the decorations, I should. You should come and see them. They are really scary.
all right, the next item on our agenda is committee reports, and first up is a quick recap of the finance committee meeting.
Tim, I've talked a lot. You want to go for it?
You can take it.
Just passing it right back out there. Okay, Gloria
You're good
shared
at
with
it.
us, oh gosh, Gloria shared with us an option for having a contract with financial services provider and having a different auditor, and that actually this would save us money in our auditor. No, not our auditor, Gloria, I'm sorry. But that this is someone that could provide kind of financial director services as well on kind of an ad hoc basis. So I think this could really support staff as we work on a variety of issues related to budgeting and all of that. Gloria, did you want to correct what I was referring to there?
It was our accountant, yes.
Thank you. Yes, it was the A word. And I was like, no, we're not changing our auditor. We just worked with them. Yeah, thank you. We also talked about selling our lovely trailer porta potties. So actually, again, Shane, this was your lovely idea. Why rent if we could buy? And so the company has them listed for a used price of 70,000 right now. We'll see if we get it. Who knows?
We paid for it, right?
Yeah. So, those are for sale. We talked about having some purchasing cards for a few staff just to streamline and make the accounting of like purchases that happen with the town credit card more kind of transparent and easier to track for town staff. Talked about nonprofit requests, which I think we'll get at for next time. And that was it. So it was a short meeting.
Great.
Do you have anything to add? It was short.
Great. And we also had a San Juan Regional Planning Commission meeting.
Also very short. Jim? Come on.
Very short. I think we already said that. The planning commission selected Melissa Childs as the representative to the newly formed historic board. And that was it.
And we approved the minutes.
And this is really because there were no applications before the board.
Right, there was nothing for the planning commission to review.
Great. And then there was also a Silverton Chamber of Commerce meeting.
Yes, there is. Okay, back to me. Deanne gave a great update. She had just been in kind of a state tourism office update, and these numbers were kind of astounding. So since 2022, the state has seen 25% increase in Colorado tourism revenue just since last year, $1.7 billion in revenue. Colorado has seen a 6% increase in tourist visitors since last year, and a lot of that's tracked by cell phone data. They are tracking you, all of us tracking us. And regionally, I think this was really significant and kind of correlates with what we've seen with other data. We have a 22% increase in visitors since 2022. And we already know like that was increasing. So that was kind of astounding. I think it relates to why Silverton and our region were selected for some extra support from the Colorado Tourism Office, as far as kind of marketing and helping users of all kinds reduce their impact. Spend money, but don't ruin anything. That would be the message. And that group talked a bit about some of the top priorities in the region. It's called the Mountain and Mesa region. And not surprisingly, the top priorities for this tourist-oriented group was workforce housing, improving visitors' behavior, wildfire prevention, the capacity of the various areas to deal with the growth in visitors and managing the visitor experience, wages for staff, reducing the impacts to public lands, and how to deal with the waste that's generated by increased visitors, right? Sewer, water, sewer, trash. So I think all those are very relevant for our community as well. And again, I think because of the significant increase in tourism that we're seeing, especially in our region, the Colorado Tourism Office is doing things like providing a variety of extra consulting and TA, whether that's for like how to become a dark sky community or working on helping with our visitors' behavior and reducing impacts. So that was kind of the main update that I thought was particularly relevant for this group. And several of the business owners reported about some really great years that they've seen that kind of correlated to that. Of course, not all business owners, that doesn't reflect their reality depending on what their business is. And the chamber's having an election in December. So we have a couple great candidates that are interested in filling the board seats. Yeah, I think that's the main update. Jim, did I miss anything else there? Great.
Awesome. Thank you. Next item on our agenda is trustee reports.
Okay, I'm just on a roll. Here I go again. All right, on Friday, not only we're having our fun fall festival, but if you'd also like to do a little thinking in Spanish, we're having a language justice training through public health on Friday, October 27th. It's going to be at the school from 9 to 1. And really, we're able, again, through the El Pomar Foundation to bring in a consultant from Denver that are really great at just how do we effectively connect with, engage, support our Spanish-speaking community. So if you have any interest in that, if you are a business owner that works with Spanish-speaking employees, if you have any interest at all, come on over. It's free. It's from 9 to 1, and we'll have breakfast and lunch at the school on Friday. I'm signed up. Happy to have you.
Great. Any other trustee reports?
No.
Okay. So we'll move on to continued business, 9A, Historic Review Committee candidate selection.
All right, quick recap. At our last meeting, we had David Pullett, Mike Gariak, and Jesse Rowe in attendance, who are three of the candidates, and they had an opportunity to speak and answer trustee questions. And today we have Maria here, and she will have the opportunity to speak on why she thinks she would be a great candidate and answer those same trustee questions. And then I would ask that the trustees make their selection. And then we already talked about it, but at the planning commission meeting, the commissioners nominated Melissa Child to serve as the historic review committee member and Ken Safransky to serve as the alternate. And then I wanted to give a brief update on language interpretation. After reviewing the language in the ordinance, we decided that owner of property and year-round resident within the historic overlay district means you live in the historic overlay district and you own property. And so that changes the lineup and the qualifications a little bit, and that is reflected in this memo. And if I'm happy to answer any questions, and if not, then I think it'd be a great time to invite Maria up. Okay.
Hi, I'm Maria Zamora, and I want to thank the board for allowing me to come late to the meeting party. I had surgery a few weeks ago. I am a local historian who grew up in Silverton. I have a doctorate in education and I taught history for 23 years. I actually grew up a half a block from the historic district in a 100-year-old house that came from Howardsville. And I really believe that we are all stewards of Silverton's history. And we have an obligation to honor that history, because when we build new houses, they can, or whatever kind of building it is, it can be here for generations. And if we look around our town, we will see several buildings that fit that criteria. I think that the committee should create guidelines for builders, renovators, developers to follow. And I think that these builders, people should have to put their plans in front of the committee and follow the guidelines. They wouldn't be that stringent, but they would be guidelines. And every builder, no matter who they were, would follow the same guidelines. I think that I'm losing my train of thought. I was given 3 questions by the board, and the first question was from Ms. Cranker and the fundamental question was, how are we going to meet our housing crisis in Silverton? In the past, historically, Silverton built boarding houses for single minors or couples to live in. And in contemporary times, in today's times, what we would build would be apartment buildings or condos. And they would, if they were in the historic district, they would follow the guidelines by having a facade or a false front that would look historic. And that falls into Mr. Harper's question. The second question was, would we allow people to use contemporary materials in order to make their buildings look historical? Well, I have a perfect example, and that is my own home, which was built here in Silverton, 2017. And in the front of the house, there are scallops on there that look Victorian and they look wooden, but in reality, they're made out of cement. And you wouldn't know that unless you were a builder or, you know, interested in that kind of thing. So definitely you can use current materials that look historic to build today. The third question was from Ms. Barney, and that was, how do we keep ourselves from becoming the committee of good taste? Well, this is a committee that is built from citizens for citizens, and it has nothing to do with good taste. It has to do with advice, with education, and with guidelines. And I believe that I would be a really good fit for the committee because of my background and because of my interests and because I feel like I owe this to my community. So I'll be happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Okay.
Hold up a second. We might have questions.
Or is that fair?
We had additional questions for the other people. It wasn't just 3.
Okay.
So is there anything?
Just checking.
Yeah. So is there any, like, based on that, is there any additional Q&A in order to help us make a decision? Everybody's good? Never mind. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.
Yeah. So the way that Lucy laid this out for us, I think it helps the conversation and discussion quite a bit. Where we've got a couple of motions that we've been asked to make for people that are already being recommended, like Melissa Childs and Ken Safransky. And then we have 3 categories to choose from, and Lucy's broken that out. And so my suggestion would be that we just go category by category and have our discussion and make our selection.
I like that idea.
Cool. Would we like to do that and then make all of the motions at the end? Or do you want to just go motion by motion?
I'm good with one motion at the end.
Okay. So in that case, we first would consider selecting one of the applicants to serve as an owner of property and year-round resident within the historic overlay district, of which Jesse is the only qualifying candidate. So are we all happy to select Jesse?
It seems like a no-brainer.
Okay, great. So then we'll consider the applicant who would serve as the year-round resident of the town, of which all 4 applicants qualify. Jesse's no longer considered, so we're choosing between David, Mike, and Maria. And also keep in mind that in the 3rd category, we're only choosing between Maria and David.
I know we're proceeding sequentially, but I would like to kind of advocate for Maria Samara for the member of the Historic Society and just for bringing the, I think, historian background. I think that's important on this committee. I think that professional experience would be really important. And as far as a voting member, so that would be the position that I would take, was to be having Maria as the 3rd category.
Okay, so we can skip to,
Helps.
so between Maria and David,
But that, I'm putting it out there. My colleagues may disagree.
I think that's great.
I agree with that. I think given her background, that makes sense to have her as the member of the Historical Society, since that is her background as well.
Agreed.
Same here.
Jim? Okay, great. Okay, so we have Jesse and Maria. So now to consider the last category, we're choosing a year-round resident of the town among David Pollitt and Mike Garyak.
Hard choice. But I want to advocate for Mike Garyak because he is a longtime resident of the town who has put a lot of effort into a lot of different buildings and has a storied experience, specifically in the historic overlay district, which I think makes him an especially good candidate. I do want to recognize that David does live in what is essentially a historic building. But I'd like to advocate for Mike.
I think Mike would be a great contribution as well. I did really appreciate David's perspective and kind of the thoughtfulness that he brought to the last discussion. And also balancing having someone really new, not super new to the community, but new perspective. I think that could also be valid. But I think either one of these gentlemen would be a really great contributor. They have a lot to bring.
Yeah, I agree with both of you, and my thinking about this is really not to necessarily compare the two candidates. I think both have so much to offer and in a different capacity and a different sort of way to the review committee. And I wanted to advocate for David, not so much as to advocate against Mike. I don't want you to hear this as an against comment, but for someone, I think in this particular context, where I'm really happy that Maria is serving on the committee as like a representative of a longtime resident with a lot of background in professional background and educational background in history, to also bring to the committee. I actually think there's a lot of value in having a new perspective and stepping outside of the community a little bit, especially when we set up what we want to be fair and objective guidelines and policies and procedures that are sort of standardized and consistent and fair. I think an outside perspective in that particular arena is often really helpful. And I happen to have watched really closely. I grew up in a historic home in Virginia. It was over 100 years old and it was in a historic overlay district. And I just watched our neighbor go through this. I followed the entire process of his proposal and planning. And I watched all these very bizarre meetings of the historic review committee looking at our neighbor's house. And it really emphasized to me the value of being able to have the ability to sort of step outside of the project and be objective and not unemotional. I think these are emotional issues a lot of times and really affect people's lives, but just bringing some expansiveness to the conversation was really useful. And I watched those meetings and they were a mixture of mostly just local people who had really strong opinions that were often really different. And I think, yeah, I almost wished for that review committee to have someone who could kind of step in and just lift everyone out of the specifics of that and reorient and retrack the conversation. So I think David could potentially bring that component to the committee as a balanced mix of the experience and the educational background and the just on the ground, boots on the ground kind of Jesse's experience. And yeah, I'm just looking at like how to mix it.
For the whole committee.
For the whole committee and yeah, for the whole community as representing.
My initial response is leaning a bit, kind of agreeing what Liv was saying, leaning towards Mike. Mainly because the point you're making, I felt fit with both Jesse and David, and Jesse is our only fit for the other category.
Right.
But again, either of them would do a great job.
Yeah.
There's not enough room for both.
I totally both are really highly qualified and really generous to offer the service to the community.
Jim, what do you think?
Thank you. In checking all the boxes for qualifications, with regards to the seat, both candidates, Dr. David and Mike Gariak, have filled those boxes with some left over. What we have are two greatly qualified individuals that bring a unique perspective to the table. Mike, obviously, with his longevity in the community and all the different boards he's served on and helped out with, and Dr. David, new to the community, but already on the historic board, the Historical Society, and wanting to jump in and be a part of our community. Both are very admirable. And both can do the job. It's a shame that we don't have the availability of having some sort of alternate in the case of one of the members being absent. And is that a definite no?
It's not written in to the ordinance, but I don't see why you couldn't make a request to change that.
How difficult would that be to make that request?
That would not be difficult. We would just bring the ordinance back to you and we would amend it. It's not the way it's typically done, but also that is okay. We can make our own rules.
I'm not one for going rogue and making up stuff on the fly. Could ever accuse me of that.
Really, Jim?
Jim, never.
Trustee Harper, just make the motion to accept both of them or with one as an alternate, and I'll make the amendment to the ordinance.
Love it. See, I love it. I guess I'd like to make that motion. What Clayton just said.
So who would be the alternate and who would serve?
And I think that's for us to decide as a board. Oh, we're back here again. Fine. I'll put it out. I'll put it out there. I really, I like what Dr. David had said, and I really like what Mike had said. And if Mike's willing to be the utility player and be our alternate for any member that's willing that misses a meeting, then that would be my motion. But that's really up to Mike. But that is the motion I propose. That the seat go to Dr. David and Mike be our all utility pinch hitter.
I would second that motion if Mike is up for it. Mike, do you want to respond?
I am willing to be part of this whole thing is, well, you tell me where else I can be, and I'll try to do the best job, making you point. That's it.
Oh, hip hip hooray.
Yay.
Do you wanna?
And thank you all for allowing me that, and thank you, Clay and Lucy, thank you so much for being malleable.
I think the board will be better served with all of that. I think that grant allowed some great flexibility.
I totally agree. And thank you, everyone that has stepped up to give their services back to our community.
Right, so we have to make one motion to approve all, right? Or do we need to do two motions now?
No,
I think we
need to
could
do a
do-
lot of motion.
I think that we should take Jim's motion as proposed and consider whether there's a second for it, and then do that. And then I think we do everything else in one motion.
Thank you, Shane.
Yeah, thank you.
I'll second Jim's motion unless Clayton thinks he needs to make it again closer to my second.
You're good, trustee Cranker.
Thank you.
Okay,
Nice.
so you just seconded Jim's motion to appoint David to the seat with Mike as a utility player alternate for any open seat whenever needed.
Correct.
Great. Roll call, please.
Edwards.
Yes.
Trustee Cranker.
Yes.
Trustee Harper.
Yes.
Trustee Bearman.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Barney.
Yes.
Mayor Furman.
Yes. Great. And then we will consider a motion to appoint Melissa Childs to serve as the representative from the San Juan Regional Planning Commission with Ken Safransky as the alternate, as well as Jesse Rowe as the owner of property and year-round resident within the Historic Overlay District, and Maria Samora as the member of the Historical Society.
Second.
That wasn't
Wait,
my
that's
motion. That's so moved. Thank you. Do we have a second? Roll call, please.
Trustee Edwards.
Yes.
Trustee Cranker.
Yes.
Trustee Harper.
Yes.
Trustee Bearman.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Barney.
Yes.
Mayor Furman.
Yes. I love when we get to say yes to everything.
Awesome.
Thank you, everybody.
So
Yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you all for your interest.
gonna be a great team.
No, I'll keep working on talking those high schoolers into it.
You're waiting on a high schooler. Put that on the record. I would love a high schooler on this committee.
It's very tough sell.
Building requirements.
That's okay.
I would have done this in high school, just to say. That's just like who I was.
Talk a lot about you, but that doesn't tell us how to get a high schooler.
And our first meeting will be in November. I will email all the members to finalize date, and we will be doing a training and looking forward to the first meeting. So thank you all.
Would it be possible to do that during the back half of the first week of December instead of November?
I will send you an email about that.
And we'll Mike get the training as well as an alternate, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna invite all the alternates. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Okay.
Well,
Yes, thank you, everybody. So now we will go to our closing public comment. We'll start in person, move to Zoom. If you're on Zoom, please click the raise hand button. In person, would anyone like to make a public comment? Please announce yourself.
I'm Jesse Rowe, newly appointed member. No, so my public comment again is to reiterate broadly regarding the budget that I think we should really consider a more than a 1.5% COLA increase for our town staff. There is a reason that you guys got to say yes to everything tonight, and that your meetings are fast and that your town reports are smooth. It would be absolutely not in accordance with standard practice to give a 1.5% COLA increase, especially to high performing individuals on your staff. And as you consider the budget, I think you should model in something higher than that. It's really nice that we have a functioning town staff and board, and everyone is like not here with pitchforks and knives and metaphorically, of course. But so I just wanted to continue to harp on that.
Thank you. Any other in-person comment? And do we have any raised hands on Zoom? I do not see any, so we'll close public comment. It's 8:54 p.m. and I adjourn this meeting. Thank you all very much and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Like A for civics.